So, Bruce, what I'd like to do in this video is do a quick overview of the political ideological spectrum, a little about the Overton window and the current U.S. political climate, how social issues map to that spectrum, and also how there was a hint of racism. Not to say that you are racist, I don't want to assume that about anybody, but to show some people some of the dog whistles. So, firstly, you're a person who's putting together contract lists and you want to go completely unfunded because you think that that is the best way to be as decentralized as possible. And if you're saying that, I think that you're understanding, as I do, that centralization exists on a spectrum. There are systems that can be completely centralized, and there are systems that can be completely decentralized, and there are various permutations and hybrids thereof. And so too on the political spectrum. There are policies that are obviously right-wing, and that there are policies that are obviously left-wing. And it's important to realize and understand that right-wing means the same thing in the United States that it does in Japan, Europe, and the rest of the world, and left-wing also means the exact same things. And what that means is that policies that are on the right side of the political spectrum are those policies which support capital and the owning class, and policies on the left side of the political spectrum are policies that support workers and the working class. Now, there's also something called the Overton window, which is essentially the range of political ideology and thought that is possible within any society at any period of time. So, for example, there are ideologies within the left part of the social spectrum that are interesting and talked about and discussed in England. For example, if you over here is Paddy Pimblett, he's an MMA fighter for the UFC. He is a socialist. Now, the ideologies that the political party that he supports are not on the ballot in the United States because the Overton window for them is to the left of the Overton window in the United States. And in the United States, both political parties are exclusively on the right side of the political spectrum. No major party in the United States is on the left side of the political spectrum at all, despite what you might hear about the far left and other such things. And the reason that we know that to be true is because both political parties get a majority of their donations from corporations and billionaires. Now, this has been happening for a long time, but especially since Citizens United, which said that corporations have free speech and political donations are part of free speech, hence corporations can donate any amount of money to political campaigns, and that was be considered free speech. Once that happened, it was made possible that all of our political candidates would be funded exclusively by corporations and have their interests, not ours, in mind. Now, when we look at the social ideologies that exist, we see that they actually can be mapped very clearly to left or right ideologies based purely on money. So, for example, education is going to be existing on the left side of the political spectrum because making education free and accessible to everybody makes them more valuable as workers and able to negotiate for higher wages with their employers. That means that it is anti-capital and pro-labor. Destroying education, making education private, is something that limits education access, advantage, leverage to the working class, and hence that would be a right-wing ideology. Similarly, abortion. Forcing people who are pregnant to maintain that pregnancy and then have a child increases the amount of money that they are going to need to survive and also increases the immediacy with which they need to get that money. That means that anti-abortion ideologies benefit owners, benefit capital, and are disadvantageous to workers. What this all means is that all billionaires essentially are politically aligned. And when we have these ideas that George Soros promotes these progressive liberal ideals, what we have to understand is that while they might be more to the left than certain billionaires, they still very much exist exclusively on the right side of the political spectrum because they all promote capital as opposed to workers. And when it specifically gets into George Soros, there's a couple things to say. The first thing I'll say is that no billionaire until Elon Musk has had the moxie to attempt to control the entire population the way that he did by singularly owning the largest distribution channel of information, whereby he can A, own the data, and also B, control what you see on it. But more than that, Elon Musk's net worth is about $400 billion, and George Soros is about $8 billion. So Elon is worth 50 times what George Soros is worth, and thus George Soros is not able to have anywhere near the same impact that Elon Musk would in any arena. Now, the reason that George Soros is constantly brought up as the left-leaning, liberal, progressive, or whatever of billionaires is because George Soros is Jewish. And I'm not saying that you're saying this, but it's essentially a dog whistle for people on the right because they are racist.